Welcome to the Weather Insights Briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. This is Tuesday, September 24th. And Jeff, now we have Tropical Storm Helene, finally a named storm. Wind shear relaxed a little bit as expected, which allowed this thing to get better organized. And now we have a tropical storm and expecting rapid intensification as it moves across the Gulf and expected to become a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall somewhere around the Big Bend, Florida area. And, the track has still stayed pretty consistent. This is also expected to be a very large storm. You can see that convection there getting organized. And here are the latest watches and warnings from the National Hurricane Center as of 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Starting with the hurricane warning down there by Cancun, and then a tropical storm warning just slightly to the west of there. Then as it moves to the Gulf, we have a hurricane warning now in effect from Mexico Beach, Florida to Enclave, Key, Florida. And then south of there, a tropical storm warning. Also, the tropical storm warning on the western side of Cuba just looks like a little bit east of Havana and all the way to the tip of Cuba. Then even on the other side of Florida, we have a tropical storm watch. So this is just saying that this storm is expected is going to have a big wind field. And then as it moves inland, Jeff, it's not done. Folks in Atlanta and north of there need to be heads up, need to be aware and ready for high winds as well as a lot of rain.
Yeah, it's getting bad when the Christmas tree colors start coming out, and
Right.
here it is. We'll have some even more colorful maps as we go forward in time here in Georgia and Florida over the next couple of days. But get ready. This is coming north, and it's going to come north fast, and it's going to plow up into that Florida Big Bend area. You can see on the consensus track here, there's very little deviation in the last several runs of the model. So east side of Appalachia Bay, or Apalachicola, west side of Appalachia Bay, and then almost right over Metro Tallahassee, and then almost a beeline up towards the Atlanta metro area. And so this is going to be that corridor where we're going to be watching for a lot of issues, and can't totally rule out the track shifting over here towards the Tampa area. But even with the track this far west, the large wind field, that direction of the wind, we're going to have impacts all along the west coast of Florida, the Florida Keys, all up through Georgia. And so this is going to be a pretty big, impactful storm. Intensity guidance, I'm showing this just to show it. It's come down a little bit today. I don't know if that's more a function of the short-term issues this is having. It hasn't really formed that inner core yet down in the Caribbean, but the conditions look very favorable in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm going to switch back over to the IR for a minute here. And this trough here, digging down through the Central Plains, this is the big trough, is going to interact with this as this comes up in the Gulf of Mexico and help vent the northern side of the system. So you can kind of see these clouds here in the East Coast pulling away off the Northeast. That's going to help evacuate that rising air near the center away from that center, which helps that pressure fall. And so this is a very favorable pattern over top of mid-80, upper 80-degree water temperatures here in the Gulf of Mexico to really see some strengthening. And so it's just going to be the determination of how long it takes that inner core to form. And once that thing forms, it's going to go. This is kind of like go to the races here, category 3, possibly higher, certainly on the table here. But regardless, a large wind field size hurricane and powerful hurricane coming up right toward the Big Bend area, Appalachia Bay here in Florida. This is the sustained tropical storm force wind probabilities. So you can see high probabilities, obviously, near the coast and their arrival time. So we're talking southwest coast of Florida, Florida Keys, Thursday morning, and then by Thursday evening. So this is a 12-hour period. We're inland to the Georgia border. And so in a 12-hour period, we're going to see dramatically deteriorating conditions along the west coast of Florida and into the Florida Panhandle and the Big Bend area, and then up into Georgia. And look at these probabilities of sustained tropical storm force winds, 40-50% central Georgia, Valdosta, and I even up to Atlanta. I still think Atlanta 35-55 potentially on the gust.
Yep.
Wouldn't be surprised to see some high gust up here in the mountains of western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee. Obviously, you go up in elevation, you get some high wind. This
Yeah.
is going to be an impactful system well inland, not just on the coast, but well inland.
Yeah.
Storm surge, this has held pretty well today. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some values increased here on the east side of Appalachia Bay, maybe up, 15, 18 feet possibly as we get a little bit closer. But even down here, further to the south, we're talking 6 to 10 feet. Metro Tampa, Tampa Bay, St. Pete, 5 to 8 feet. And again, these are reasonable worst case scenario. Not every single place along here is going to see these values. But this is concerning. Tampa Bay, 8 feet on a worst case scenario here. That's going to be a lot of inundation in and around Clearwater, north towards the areas north up and towards, especially Cedar Key. These areas that were just impacted by Hurricane Debbie back in August, Hurricane Adelia last year at this time. And so
Yep.
these areas up here are extremely surge prone. You can see here the concave shape, kind of the backward C look here to the coast. So as the hurricane comes up in this general direction, that south and southwest wind is piling this water in
piling
here.
it.
And
Yep.
the water has nowhere to go.
Right.
Only good news, the only silver lining I can find, and we'll take probably a deeper dive into the surge stuff tomorrow. The only silver lining is that this is not overly populated. This is kind of what
Yes.
they call the nature coast of Florida. It's a lot of marsh and swamp areas. There's definitely a few towns in here, but this is not the population of, for example, say Tampa or St. Pete or Fort Myers in that area. So while there are certainly structures here that can be damaged, and let's just talk about this for a second. We're talking 10 to 15 feet above the ground. That's above your head. That's
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 feet above your head. That's second story of structures.
Right.
Okay. So anything down here that is coastal on the ground, even elevated, we're talking even elevated structures here, potentially getting seawater into them. And then you add the wave onto it. Then you add
Right.
the waves
The
coming
motion.
in from the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah.
crashing into those structures. Big issues here on the nature coast, possibly even as far down as just north of the Tampa Bay area for some really big issues with respect to the storm surge. I know local officials are doing the evacuations. We've seen some evacuations today. Heed those evacuations, those mandatory evacuations. This is really going to be a life threatening storm surge event here in the Appalachia Bay area. Probably have to go back and look, but this could potentially be a record event for this area. I think the record stands as the March 93 superstorm, not a hurricane, but the March 93 superstorm up in this area. And so we could easily be going beyond that up here in this portion of the coast. And I think tomorrow we can get into how far inland are we talking with this surge and look at some of the cities. And of course, this is based on a category 3. The forecast right now 115 miles an hour, big wind field, which is why you have surge all down the coast here. But if this comes in maybe a little bit stronger, the wind field expands a little bit. These values again, I'm concerned they could go up a little bit. Probably not a lot, but they could go. We're already talking really high values here.
Sure.
And then lastly, the rain. Don't want to sleep on this. Down here in the Florida Panhandle, 8 inches or a foot of rain. That's not quite that unusual for a big tropical landfall. Big concern here, I think. The big story after the landfall, the big story after all the trees and the power outages across Georgia that are going to come down with this. There's going to be power outages probably all the way up to North Georgia. Is going to be as all this moisture slams into the southern Appalachians here. And, we're talking 12 a foot, 16 inches of rain, western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia. There's also a front laying down through here, the same front that's going to come through here tomorrow. That same weather system's going to kind of lay through here, and that could help enhance some of that on top of the mountains. Boy, this is looking like a big flash flood event here in western North Carolina, northern Georgia. Don't sleep on this. Everybody always sleeps on that inland rainfall threat, the flash flood threat, rivers, your creeks, even areas that normally don't have problems could have really big problems with this rain coming in here. You put that on top of that saturated soil. They're getting rain up here today, 50, 60 mile an hour winds possible, trees coming down, power outages. it is going to be a mess from the west coast of Florida all the way up into the southern Appalachians by the time we get to Saturday or so.
Yeah, and you saw the track on this right at the end, how it sort of takes that loop where you see that sometimes with these late storms, how they can just kind of loop sometimes and set up and just keep dumping rain. So I'm glad you brought that up too, Jeff, because I wanted to. This is one of those storms that you definitely don't want to focus on the cone. Lots of impacts outside of the cone with this one because of the large fields. So good stuff, Jeff. We'll have more on tropical storm, likely Hurricane Helene tomorrow. So be sure to tune in. Make sure you subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications for the Weather Insights podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.